Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I don't know what that intro was, but I'm here. I'm in my truck. It is snowy outside, if you guys can see that. You can kind of see there's like snow, but we've still got like fall colors. It's really beautiful because not all of the fall leaves have fallen off, but there's snow everywhere. So we got a lot of beauty up in here, but it's freezing in North Idaho currently. My car is nice and toasty though. I warmed it up for this video. And today, oh wait, actually, I thought you guys would find it funny, even though it's freezing out, I do in fact have an iced tea. I drove to a local coffee shop called Terra this morning to get a ginger peach iced tea. I pretty much make my teas from home now 99% of my life, which is quite a flip from my previous life. Like back when I lived in LA. Now granted, it was because a lot of the work I would do was at coffee shops and I was trying to find a way to get out of the house as well sometimes because I worked from home. But I used to buy most of my tea from coffee shops, I'd say. But now I make most of my tea at home. But this morning I was like, I really want to get out, get my head like clear, see the roads, see what's up. There's this thing, I don't know if you guys have heard this before, but supposedly, and I'm not going to do this I'm not going to explain this very eloquently, but supposedly like back in the day when people would like get out and about, like we would get out and we would look wide more. So whether we were hunting, or not wide, but like far and out, like whether we were hunting or farming or playing outside or walking somewhere, we would look wide. But now a lot of us, I guess, are looking close now, like in our homes, down on our screens, at our computers. So I wanted to just take a drive, but then also get a tea in the freezing, snowy weather. Now that I just gave you the most pointless intro ever, hi. If you're new to my channel, which who knows, does anyone stumble upon anyone from an assumptions video? Probably not. But if you are stumbling upon my channel, hi, my name is NikkiPhillippi. I have been making videos here on YouTube for almost 11 years, so I have quite the history on here. And today I'm going to do a video that I've actually wanted to do for a few years. Like I've been thinking about it because I see other people do these videos and I'm always like, ooh, that's an interesting video. But I've been kind of scared because I'm like, what do people assume about me? So we're doing an assumptions video. So I asked on Instagram. I probably should have left it longer because I got like a lot of replies, but I feel like I could get a lot more if I let it sit. But I am too impatient. I put this out last night. I want to film this now. So I asked on Instagram, what are some assumptions you guys have about me? And the responses have been really interesting, and for like a lot of different reasons, including the fact that I can't believe how well some of you know me and how good some of your guesstimates are about me and who I am. So I'm going to start reading some of these assumptions to you. It feels weird too because you're like, which one do I pick? Does it say something about me if I pick a certain assumption first? Some of these are really, really nice, but I'm just gonna pick this random one. This first one says, you're a kind badass and I want to be your friend. So thanks, Mariah. I think that's probably a good description of me because I feel like I'm nice. I really like people a lot. I think that I have this like trait in my personality that I think is a good trait, but it's actually gotten me into trouble in the past because of, I guess you could say, like naivete, not really knowing how the world works. Like I know how the world works now, but just track with me. And the trait that I have is pretty much when I meet people, like my brain always goes towards what I like about them. And it's very easy for me to find things that I like about people when I meet them. But I would also say, yes, maybe I'm a bad ASS in the sense that like I've owned businesses essentially since I was 14. And so I've been put in situations a lot of different times over the course of my life where I've had to have like hard conversations with people. And I actually, this makes me think back to a situation I had maybe 6 or 7 years ago with a YouTube work interaction where I had to confront someone that I was working with that had essentially betrayed me and was doing some pretty horrible things. And when I was first reaching out to them, I remember reading this message to a friend, and the friend was like, wait, you straight up sound like a guy. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, there's like no emotion in this. And I was like, well, it's because I'm just like saying it how it is. I'm like stating the facts. And she thought that that was really weird. I thought that that was just what needed to be done in the situation. And so if there's that side of me, maybe that is like, I guess you could say that, because I remember being shocked that she was shocked that I was just willing to say the truth. I didn't think that there was any meanness to that. But since then, I have realized that in general, with a lot of people, when you say your truth or the truth, depending on the situation, a lot of people think that that's kind of mean, or that it's like, whoa, like maybe badass, like you said, like aggressive. And I don't, and I actually don't love being that way. I don't love confrontation, at all. But I feel like there are times in life where things just have to be talked about. So yeah, that was kind of a tangent, but that just, I mean, isn't that the point of these assumptions, right? I'm going to tangent. So next one. You are anti-vax. Haha. Basically, yes. Not fully. For a long time, I would say I am not anti-vax, especially at the beginning of everything that has been happening over the last few years. I would really say I am not anti-vax. I am anti what's happening right now, and the rollout of everything. But as time has gone on, I've actually started to embrace that phrase a little more, because I just don't find it as embarrassing as maybe I used to find it, because everything that has happened over the last few years has been so like atrocious and in our faces that I'm just like, dude, I can be embarrassed all I want, but like it is what it is, and that is who I am. And at this point, it's still my choice. I still have the medical freedom to make those kinds of decisions. And one thing that I noticed that people really like to do when you say that you're anti-vax or that you're not into the vaccine schedules, people really like to shame you and make you feel like you're really stupid and uninformed. And I've just realized that that's a tactic. And I know now that that's not true. And there are a lot of people, and a lot of really intelligent, highly educated people that sit in the camp that I sit in. So I've realized over the last couple of years, I don't need to be ashamed just because they're trying to make me feel embarrassed. They're meaning like someone who's maybe aggressively against my stance. I don't need to take that on or allow that to affect me, because that's just unfortunately, that's just the way it goes sometimes. When people disagree with things, they'll make you feel like you're stupid, or they'll try to make you feel like you're stupid or embarrassed. Like, how could you, and they'll throw different slams at you about, conspiracy theorists and not doing your research and being an idiot. And I've just realized, okay, that's part of it. Kind of like about 5 years ago, I remember being in a therapy session, and my counselor, and I do not remember for the life of me how this got brought up, but I remember just this general sentence and this sentiment. And she basically said to me, hey, just so you know, people will throw out the phrase racist without even really meaning it. They'll say it to disarm you, to make you be like, oh my gosh, and be like freaked out, because it's emotionally so upsetting that it is a good startling mood, like a startling thing to throw at someone. And like I said, I don't remember what happened. I don't remember if someone had said something to me or how it got brought up, but she just said, you need to know that this is a tactic that people use, and you can't allow their attacks to make you feel emotionally thrown off balance. And I feel that same way now with the whole vaccine debate. I'm like, no, you can try all you want to make me feel stupid, but I know, and I've talked to these people who are very intelligent, very well researched, people in the medical field, lots of people in the medical field who sit on the other side. So they will try to make you believe that that's not true, but I'm telling you it's true. And they can tell me all they want that it's not, but it is. So differences of opinions, that's the camp I sit in. And like I said, by the grace of God, at this point, I still have the medical freedom to make those decisions. But yeah, it's wild. There are a lot of books that have been written about this topic, a lot of papers that are available online. And then even just there, oddly enough, are still actually a lot of doctors on YouTube that you can kind of find if you do enough digging, talking about some of these things. So yeah, and then on top of that, people can slam anecdotal stuff all they want, but we all know that like who you meet in real life, the experiences that you have, the things that you see do impact you. And all of those things that I mentioned have impacted me through real life encounters and relationships and things that I've seen unfold. So, yep. Okay, this person said, this is Kayla, you are a night owl and not an early bird. Okay, so unfortunately, guys, I am so lazy. I don't need to be mean to myself, but we'll just say that I'm neither at this point in my life. I don't love staying up late and I don't love getting up early. I like having lots of sleep. No, but for real, I'm one of those people that like, I can't get less than 7 hours of sleep. Like if I do, you're going to hear me talk about it all day. Like, oh my gosh, I'm running off 6 hours of sleep. Like it's not a good situation. So I aim for 7 to 10 hours of sleep every single night. And I do a lot to like organize my life around that. Now I will say in the winter, I tend to get up a lot earlier. Like this morning, I was up around 5:30 a.m. And I actually remembered going into the season, even though we're not in winter yet, we're in fall. But it's starting to feel like winter because of the amount of light and darkness during the day. And I said to Dan maybe a few weeks ago, I'm like, I'm flashing back to last year and remembering that this time of year, I tend to get up earlier. Like I get up when it's still dark so that I can start the day and take advantage of all of the light while I have it. So, yeah. I'm going to read this one because it's just such a nice compliment. It says, I assume you are extremely intelligent. I appreciate that because I, for a very long time in my life, and it's probably still there a little bit, which is why I just read that comment, but for a very long time in my life, I felt very paranoid about the fact that I felt like everyone thought I was stupid. I obviously have like a very upbeat, people have described it as like sunshiny disposition to my personality. And I felt like because of that, like it's always come off as stupidity. I feel that way in general, that like when someone is happy, joyful, sees like the positive side of things, a lot of people tend to lump them, like they tend to categorize them as being stupid. And that's something that I decided to kind of get over, honestly. Actually, this is really random. It really happened partially, like a big change was when Dan and I visited Israel a few years ago. And I had this like, I guess you would say like spiritual encounter. I had this moment where I really felt like the Lord was speaking to me. And I say this hesitantly because it wasn't like an audible voice. But it was a pretty strong impression. And it was actually when we were at the Wailing Wall. And I'm not one that has stuff like this happen all the time. Like I'm not always feeling like the Lord's giving me super strong impressions. So I just want to throw that out there too, if that means anything at all. But what I basically felt in my spirit was this: the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord is my strength. And it just kept repeating. And then after a few times, it flipped in my head to the strength of the Lord is my joy. The strength of the Lord is my joy. And this may mean nothing to you, but that moment was so impactful to me in the sense that like, I don't know, there was a lot of time spent thinking, not only like with the whole stupidity thing, like people think I'm stupid just because I'm joyful, but also hand in hand with that, it was like people think that I've gone through nothing because I'm joyful. And it felt like I had to like prove myself, like, no, I've gone through hardship too. And that moment impacted me so deeply, and kind of that whole general narrative really started to flip at that point in my head of like, it really doesn't matter if people know or not, or care or not, that I've been through hardships, that I've fought my own battles that have been very difficult, or if I feel like, you know, they think I'm really stupid and I'm like, no, I'm intelligent, I've done X, Y, and Z. It's like, honestly, it doesn't matter. And on top of that, intelligence is a spectrum anyways, just like everything else, right? Like being pretty is a spectrum. Like everything is on a spectrum. There's always someone who does something better or more impressive than you, and there's always someone who does something worse or less impressive than you. But I will say, even though that feeling has really been tamed in a lot of ways by the grace of God. I still appreciate it, which is probably why I read it, because I really appreciate that assumption, especially because a lot of people on the internet just don't feel that way about me. So there's that. Okay. Stacy says, you don't schedule your day out and you wait to see how you feel each day. So that is partially true. It's not fully true. I'm a really big list person. I like my calendar. I like kind of planning things, but at the same time, I really enjoy spontaneity and like flying by the seat of your pants. And I'm someone who also can kind of get depressed if I'm like forced to do something just because, and that's even in regards to myself. So I give myself a lot of flexibility that like, if I just don't want to do something, I won't do it. And that's not always true, because sometimes things just have to be done. And sometimes I'm like, no, this is my goal. We're doing it. But as a generalization, kind of my rule for myself is every day I have to just keep moving forward. I have to do something. I have to build my life. But there's a lot of ways to build your life, including resting. I'm just going to throw that out there. Resting is an important part of life. I try to be honest with myself, but there's a lot of ways to build a life. And so sometimes, basically, let me just explain. This is what I do. Every week, or this is what I do as of right now, I write out my goals for the week. So they're all the things that when I end the week, I would really love to look back and be like, wow, I did this. So I have all my goals. Then as the week unfolds, what typically happens is the night before I go to that goals for this week list, and I will take things from there that I would like to accomplish the following day. I like compare those things to what's on my calendar, and what makes sense. Like, okay, how much time do I have tomorrow? How much am I at home? How much am I out and about? What are my goals with Logie? What are my goals for work? What are just all of the things, right? And then I plug that in for my to-do list the next day. When I wake up, well, I sleep with my phone on airplane mode, on a side note, which isn't a side note, for a couple of reasons. I developed a really horrible habit that I'm probably not going to let go of anytime soon, to be honest, when we had Logan, of listening to Audible books in the middle of the night. And the reason that I developed that habit was because it was so jarring and hard for me to be woken up multiple times in the night. Remember, let's go back to that earlier question. I'm one of those people that really values my sleep. So it was very like life altering to have a baby waking me up multiple times through the night. So what I did to combat that, I love learning and listening so much that I would just download books on my phone, and when he would wake me up, I would pop in one headphone in my ear on like a low volume so that I had something else kind of keeping me awake, stimulating me, and like exciting me. For some reason, it like bummed me out less. Maybe that sounds bad because I should be excited to care for my baby, but also maybe that makes sense to you because it's really hard to lose sleep. So it's like, okay, I could like care for my baby, feed him, and like listen to an interesting book that I've been listening through. I have kept that habit because sometimes Logan's a really good sleeper, but sometimes he still wakes up, or I can't sleep, something will happen. And so I keep my phone in airplane mode near my bed. The other reason it's in airplane mode is because I'm part of a lot of group chats. And so I get a lot of alerts like all day. So besides like the apps that I'm in, right, like Instagram or YouTube or whatever, I'm just in these like group chats on Signal and Telegram. And so I'll like ding, ding, ding. I'm getting alerts all the time. So I have to turn that off in the middle of the night. So when I wake up, I keep my phone on airplane mode till I'm ready to like receive all those alerts again. And I will look at my list. I will look at my day. I'll see what I feel like doing, and I will start tackling. And somewhere in the morning, sometimes it's earlier, sometimes it's later, I will, okay, taking it off airplane mode, and I'll do it. And then all the alerts will start coming in. But that's typically how I approach my week. I'm definitely not I just do whatever I feel like each day with no, semblance of a plan or idea of what I'm trying to accomplish, but I'm definitely not someone who's got every minute planned out. And I used to be that person. Like I went through a period of life in my like late teen years where it was like a game or competition to me to see how much I could really maximize my time throughout the day down to like the minute. It would be like 15 minutes on this, 15 minutes on that. And it was like all really thought out and mapped out. And in some ways, I kind of miss that part of my personality that like cared enough to do that. But then in other ways, I don't miss it at all, because as you could probably imagine, living in that state came with some other personality traits that I didn't love, that I don't miss. And that was like some obsessiveness, some like intense controlling just traits within my personality. And also sometimes like a big feeling of failure. Sometimes I felt like hecka accomplished. So it's not like I felt like I was failing all the time, but I felt like I was failing if I couldn't be on this perfect schedule. So I'm definitely, I guess what I would consider a little more balanced now, but some people might consider me a little out of control because I'm not super duper organized. But I do have friends that do say to me, that friends that I've made up here that are like, you're so organized. So we go back to what I was saying before about intelligence, right? Everything's on a spectrum. It's all relative and people are in different places. So there's that. Okay, someone said you are actually much more happy and more free. And I got this one, actually, a couple of people commented this after being canceled. Another person worded it like, you feel more comfortable to talk about controversial topics after being canceled. I got this comment a few times. Someone said, in a weird way, you're grateful for the controversy because now you're really happy. And all of those sentiments are generally true. They're generally true. I think about this every once in a while because my whole life flipped upside down. And you got to remember, I'm going on 11 years on YouTube. And so I had built some really specific things that just got like kind of torn down last year. You know, at the same time, part of what was so wild about it was like, if you really paid attention to me and you watched my stuff, or you went way back and watched my Ask Nikki stuff, like you would notice that heavy conservative slant to my personality or to my belief system, that's a better way to word it, has always been there. It's just developed and changed, and I feel like we got canceled for the weirdest thing. So there is a part of me now that feels like I'm just gonna say it then, and that's not fully true. And I mean, I know some people that are like super controversial on the internet, and they will even say they don't just let it all rip on the internet. So I'm not, which that leads me to someone actually said to me, the internet sees a watered down version of your beliefs and passions, understandably. Yes, so that kind of goes hand in hand with that. But in a lot of ways, as you guys know, I have become a lot more open because I still can't believe that we got canceled for that. Like our own personal decision that was so horrifying to make, that was made so thoughtfully with the help of professionals. I mean, I don't even need to say anymore. You guys know, I could go on and on. It was extremely horrifying, extremely dumb, in my opinion, like what we got canceled for, especially considering like the array of controversial beliefs that I actually hold. And so there is part of me that because of that, I'm like, well, geez, I'll just say it then. And so as you guys have seen, there have been a lot of things that I'm just like, I'll say it, because what are you going to do? I couldn't believe that like so many people, so many sponsors left my side when I didn't, like, I wasn't trying to cause a problem. I wasn't trying to be controversial. I wasn't trying to do anything other than share the truth of something hard that had happened within our family, and the rug got pulled out from under me. So now there's just part of me that's like, fine, I don't trust any of you not to leave my side anymore anyways, so I'm gonna say what I actually think. So like I said, that's not fully true, but in general. Okay, so someone said you would love a full-on homestead, but you can't afford one with the housing prices being so outrageous. That is not true. I mean, it's true that I would love a full-on homestead, but it's not, we don't have one, not because of the prices, but primarily because, well, there's two reasons. Primarily, I mean, yes, actually, let me just back up. it's a lot of money. I'm not saying that we just have like endless cash sitting around and we totally would buy, like, you're right, it's expensive, but that's not really the main thing that stopped us. The main thing that stopped us was we're not ready for a homestead at all. We are like such fake homesteaders that are at the very beginning of our journey still. We really don't know anything, and we're currently on a property that has 1/3 of an acre, and that is more than enough space to be a classroom for us for where we are at in our homesteading journey. To those of you that don't know, we finally ordered chickens. We're getting them, I believe, this week. Dan like literally just finished up within the last couple of days wrapping up the construction of our chicken coop. So I'm very excited about that. But also, we wanted to be near my parents. So we actually were looking at little homestead properties, but it just felt like, back when we were looking at homes, but it just felt like, well, geez, we're going to be away from my family. They really wanted to be more in town because we are really centrally located. Like, we are very close to all of the like main stores that you might want to have access to if you're used to that. And that's really what my parents wanted at the time. And everything just kind of unfolded in a way that it was clear this is where we're supposed to be right now. I mean, you guys know the neighbor literally walked over to my parents' house and was like, I want to sell you my house. So everything played out in a way that this is what made the most sense for us. But I mean, I was just talking to my mom about this the other day. I could totally see all of us, honestly, relocating to some kind of large homestead property within the next like 5 years, maybe, give or take. So we'll see what God has for us. But yeah. Okay, so someone said, you wear the pants in your relationship. And I would say that that's true and not true. I would say it's not true in the sense that, like, Dan would not let me wear the pants in the relationship. In the sense, this lighting is really bothering me. Is this like, ooh, that actually is better. This is, I mean, I've got a line going across my face, but I feel like now I'm not being blinded. It's not true in the sense that, like, Dan is his own strong personality, but it's true in the sense that because I'm a strong personality as well, I am not like a partner that keeps my thoughts hidden. Like, I definitely share my thoughts, my opinions, my aspirations with Dan, my goals, you know, hopes and visions for our family, with, like, for everything. Now, I would say, even though I definitely am, how do I word this? This is just going to be really honest. I am very conservative minded. I'm a Christian. So in general, I believe in this I'm a traditional Christian. I believe in this concept of, like, Dan being the head of our family. It's really interesting because even though I believe that, I often feel like our marriage really operates more almost in like an egalitarian type way, which I would never say that, like, I'm for egalitarianism. Like, really, I believe in complementarianism, that the genders are different and that they complement each other. But I do feel like in a lot of ways, Dan and I operate as like a partnership. It's weird. It's like I see him as the head, but I feel like we're partners. So I don't know if that makes any sense. That's just being really honest. I feel like his partner most of the time, and like we're doing life together. I don't feel like he's really leading and I'm following per se, and I don't feel like I'm really leading and grabbing the reins and he's like following me. So that's just being honest. It's interesting because I've always noticed that kind of a confliction between my thoughts and views on relationships versus actually how it's walked out. And how it is walked out in our relationship, I would really say is very much a partnership. Now, I will say to that, I can think of an example right now of ways in which, like, he leads. And this is kind of a good example across the board. If there's something that we're torn about, that we're both like, what do we do? Or like, I want to do something, but I'm feeling a little hesitant, I will put the ball in his court and I'll say, you know what? You sleep on this, buddy. You pray on it. You think. And then you tell me what you think is the right move. And whichever court you land in, I'm going to run with that. I've had that happen with videos regularly, actually. There's someone that I really want to interview for Tea Talk, for example, right now, that he knows about, that I really want to interview them. But I told him, I'm like, I'm kind of scared to do this interview. What do you think? And I'm leaving the ball in his court. If he thinks it's not the right move for our family, I'm not going to do it. But if he gives it the green light, then I'm going to push aside my fear and I'm going to do it because I'm feeling drawn towards this. But I trust him and his wisdom and guidance for our family, especially in regards to safety. So that's kind of an example, I guess. I don't know. This is all over the map. Okay, we're going to jump on to the next one because I feel like I'm going to talk for 12 and a half years. This next person said, you are a Trump supporter. Ooh. Okay. I'm going to be honest. Dan and I did not vote in the last election. Well, we did in this one that happened like this week, but we didn't vote in the last presidential election because we were a little bit jaded, a little bit feeling like it didn't matter and feeling like it's all a bit of an illusion to some degree or the other. So we didn't vote, but we did vote the first time that Trump ran, and we did vote for Trump. And I always felt weird because I was one of those people that voted for Trump, but I didn't go in being like I'm not a MAGA person, and I didn't go in like Trump. When I found out that he was running, I don't know if you guys remember this, but when he first announced his like candidacy, I can't think of the word, I was like, that's very interesting. And so I decided that I wanted to read some of his books because I thought I want to know some more about this guy's thought process. So but I didn't. I ended up listening to oh, that's funny. I ended up listening to one of his books instead of multiple, but that one book, and I don't remember which one it was that I read, like gave me all of the information that I needed. I was like, okay, this guy's been married 3 times. Like that already says a lot about someone. But then you got to see some of his, like you got some insight into his mind in regards to like business and building things. And I think a lot of people feel like they're just forced to make a decision when it comes to voting, not necessarily like they're jazzed on the person. And so that's how I felt when I cast my vote for Trump the first time around. It was like, this is the decision I have to make. Like, this is who I'm going to vote for if I got to place a vote. But am I like stoked level 12 on him? Not even close. And, you know, there were some things that Trump did in his presidency that I felt like were cool and like I'm glad he did. And then there were a lot of other things that like I wasn't so stoked about, including but not limited to his warp speed vaccine. I was just like not amped on that. Still not amped on that. And I could go, it's so hard, guys, for me to not go off on 32 different tangents when I know that we don't have like all day to talk. I just want to like go off on all these different subjects. So yeah, calling me a Trump supporter, I don't even actually know what that means. Like, am I a Trump supporter now? It's like, it really depends. Like, is he going to run again? Who are the candidates going to be? What is the situation? It almost feels like sometimes when voting, it's like, I mean, what's that phrase? Like picking the lesser of 2 evils in your eyes. Like, who are you willing to put your vote down for? I was really nervous during that election. Like when I was voting for him, I'm like, I can't believe he's who I'm voting for. But it was like who I felt in the moment I wanted to cast my vote for. Not in the moment, but that's, you know, in that period of time. So, yeah. Okay, someone said old school YouTubers you used to hang out with don't like you now because you're Christian and conservative. Now, there were some names dropped in this comment that I didn't want to repeat because of those names. It's not all true. I didn't want to single people out. And it's honestly still been a very surprising, unfolding journey, I guess you could say, in terms of like who is and isn't cool with me. And like I said, sometimes it's surprising. I posted something recently that I think really upset people. And I was very surprised to see which YouTubers that I've known for a very long time liked the post and or commented on the post. But then it's been equally surprising over the last few years to see which ones have dropped off the planet, you know, stopped replying to me, unfollowed me. And yeah, I mean, in general, even though there are decisions that people can make that make me feel appalled, if that's the way to put it, in general, I can keep some but this is okay. I was going to say I can keep some semblance of a relationship with people even if they have different beliefs, because that is true. I will say as time is unfolding, I'm starting to see beliefs as more, I don't know, there's consequences obviously to beliefs, and I'm raising a child and I'm hopefully going to be raising more, and I want the world to look a certain way, obviously, and so do they. So it's become a little bit harder in that sense. And that's obviously why some of these YouTubers like don't associate with me anymore, because yeah, they don't like that I'm a conservative Christian. But I will say it's been surprising which ones, like some of them have been able to set that aside and they've still been very kind to me through everything. I'm not going to say who. I have so much drama I could dish on YouTube if I wanted, because I've been in the space for so long. In a lot of ways, in my opinion, that's a big reason why my cancellation blew up so big, is because I have / had so many relationships with other YouTubers over the years that they made videos about me, and then the mainstream media picked it up because all of these other YouTubers were talking about me. And these other YouTubers, they were only talking about me because they knew me. They had a shallow relationship with me. They had been to events with me. But that being said, at this point in my life, I think about this every once in a while. I have no plans on outing anyone, on like dishing the tea or sharing the drama. Sometimes I want to, because there are quite a few YouTubers that I've met over the years that are completely different behind the scenes, that are on heavy drugs, that nobody would have known that are not very nice people, that literally put on a completely different personality only to change off camera. And I'm not saying that I was good friends with all of these people, but I've known a lot of them, whether it's been through events, parties, being on set with them, whatever. But yeah, it's surprising. Like I said, some of them, like I've said 3 times now, are still very kind to me, and every once in a while we will message. And yeah, someone said you get told that you're too happy. Yes, I do get told that in like different wording, but yes. Someone said you lean on Dan a lot, but not in a bad way. Yes, I do lean on Dan a lot. Dan is, we've been through a lot. I married Dan when he was a boy. We were just saying that the other day. It's like, you were a boy when I married you. Now you're a man. And we've been through a lot together. And yeah, I lean on him for a lot of things. I don't even know. That's the short version of that. I'm starting to feel the pressure that like we're getting near the end of this video and I got to wrap it up. Also, the sun being right there is driving me crazy and making me feel like I picked like the worst spot to film. Paula said, your mind won't let you get over your cancellation, with a sad emoji. I would say that that's partially true and partially untrue. Just like the previous commenters said, in a lot of ways, my cancellation has set me free on different levels. And that's really cool. You know, I posted a reel on Instagram recently that was a clip from my Patreon video, and it felt like skydiving. Like, it felt exciting to just like say what I actually think. I'm not there fully, and I don't know if I ever will be. There is something really nice about making people pay for your thoughts, like keeping it behind Patreon. It's just like, no, if you want to hate on me, you're at least gonna give me $5. Like, at least I get something for your hate. So there's something about that that's really nice. And it also keeps the community kind, because I have a lot of people on my Patreon, I've figured out, that do not see things the same way as I do. They're more on the left side of the political spectrum. They would identify as being feminist. They're, you know, fully vaxxed, like into the warp speed vaccine. I'm kind of kidding, but not. But they're respectful, and they find it interesting to hear other people's viewpoints, which is how I am, you know? Like, the other night I was watching the Young Turks, and in the live stream, I can't remember her name, the chick from the show, I'm blanking on her name, but she was saying like, oh, I know a lot of you guys are here just to watch us like get angry and have a meltdown. And I was like, oh, that's not why I'm here. I like genuinely find their perspectives interesting. And there's a lot of people on my Patreon that are like that just like are nice people that find my perspective interesting. And so I like that. But that being said, yes, the cancellation does still come up in my mind every once in a while. But I feel like as time has gone on, God continues to teach me more lessons. He continues to thicken my skin. He continues to make me stronger. And in some small way, I am almost grateful for it. It was a wild ride, and I look forward to seeing what God continues to do in my heart as time unfolds. But I can't get over it in the sense that like I do find myself wanting to talk about it still. Like, I have thought before because I never really did one of these on YouTube. I did it on Patreon. I have thought before that at some point I may do a full-on, like, let's talk about this, like the whole cancellation, and just like make a full video about it here on YouTube, because I do have a lot of thoughts and I haven't done it on YouTube, like I said, and I do think about it. So if you mean it in that way, like your mind won't let you get over it, I don't know if that's the right phrasing, but like I think about it sometimes and I'll want to like talk about it to you guys because it was so crazy in my mind. Like, I'm trying to not go off on a whole rant right now, honestly. We're going to pick the next thing because it's like, yeah, it's a whole thing. Someone said, you are 420 friendly. The short answer is yes. That's the short answer. I am. I think, unfortunately, cannabis has changed a lot within the last 30 years. Like the actual structure, chemical structure of the plant has changed a lot. I think it's become a lot more like the THC content has become elevated. And I think, unfortunately, and I'm not quite sure what this means, I think that there are people on the left side of the political spectrum that are going to utilize cannabis like for their own political gain. And I don't really know what that means. Whether it's like up in Canada, like to my knowledge, Canada legalized cannabis, but it's not easy to grow it. Like, I don't even know if anybody can grow it unless you become like a registered medical, like dispensary, basically. Like you go through the government and register a certain way. And I'm much more of the mindset of like, this is a plant. Like, let people do what they want to do with this plant. People are allowed to brew beer in their garage. Like, you don't have to get a special license for that. I think very similarly to that. I mean, I've mentioned this before. If you go back to the founding of our country, there are multiple guys that were involved in the founding fathers, that made comments about hemp. Like, this plant should never be taken away from people because the possibilities of use with this plant are endless. And I agree with that sentiment. I've mentioned this before. Henry Ford actually built a whole bumper out of hemp in the early 1900s, and it was basically indestructible. So there's a lot of thoughts that I have around that. But I think just like anything else, just like alcohol, just like sugar, just like honestly anything, even water, like you drink too much water, you're going to cause problems in your body. I think that things can be abused, can and are abused, and can ruin families. And I think that people use substances sometimes to check out of the problems that are going on in their life. But I also think that that plant, in my opinion, currently, depending on what kind of plant you get, is a lot safer than a lot of pharmaceuticals that are currently being pushed by doctors. I've mentioned this before. According to the last time I checked the statistics, approximately 250,000 people die every year taking their prescriptions as prescribed by their doctors. So they're dead. There's no going back. How many people are dying each year of cannabis? There's other problems, and I've seen them circulating, things that can happen, especially depending on what age you use that flower. I tend to call it flower sometimes. But people aren't dropping dead. And like I said, that's not me saying that there aren't other problems that can cause chaos in someone's life. But I just think when you look at all of that, it's like, man, it's kind of wild. And then to think that people are serving time in prison for drugs, for cannabis, but doctors are allowed to continue to prescribe drugs like consequence-free, it seems. I mean, I'm sure that's not the case across the board, but consequence-free, it seems, while people are dying at the rate of like 250,000 a year, and there's no, like I said, seemingly no consequence for it. And then regular citizens end up serving time in prison for having too much of a plant. So, someone said that you're self-absorbed and obsessed with your own image. I would say in some ways, yes, because I'm a YouTuber. Editing your own videos is really weird. And putting yourself on camera, setting yourself up to be filmed, it definitely by nature fosters a certain level of self-obsession, like being self-absorbed, if that's the way we want to put it. But in some ways, no, and less so now than maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, because as I've stepped away from Los Angeles and this image that I think places like LA kind of require of you or want you to have, I've become like less obsessed with how I look. And I'm laughing because I think everybody is to a degree, right? We all have mirrors in our house. We look in the mirror if we're going out, whatever. But I do think that being a YouTuber adds another level to that, and it's something that you kind of have to fight. I don't fully know what being obsessed with your own image means, but I just thought I would kind of pseudo answer that point. Someone said, you are the life of the party. I can be the life of the party. Yes. And sometimes that is why socializing can exhaust me, because sometimes I don't know how to be anything other than like the life of the party. I just get like really excited around people. And so sometimes it's like exhausting for me because I'm like, I don't know how to not be super hyped and engaged with everyone while I'm here. So I'll have to like retreat and have some like alone time. But yes, a lot of people said you like indie music, which is really random. I don't know what that means. I think that if by indie music you mean like literally independent music, yeah, I like independent music. To be honest, I like all music if it's good. Haha. That I realize that's extremely relative and objective. But that's the phrase I said. That's what I'm sticking by. I like it if it's good. And what I mean by that really is I like so many different types of genres of music. Like literally, I like pretty much every genre of music, depending on, it's not like I like all of the songs in those genres, but I can find songs within like every genre of music that I genuinely love. I'm just a music, like I love music in general, but I'm also not someone who's like listening to music all the time or like searching for new artists all the time, but I can easily like hop back into that music mode, and like I pick up on songs really quickly. I grew up a dancer and a singer, and so songs really like catch on to me, like they catch on in my brain very fast. And yeah, sure, I like indie music. Okay, someone said you are registered as an independent, like for voting. And the answer basically is yes. I am registered as not being affiliated with a political party. Pretty much always, except for this last election, I'm gonna vote Republican because in general, the tenets that Republicans tend to have in their platform are more in line with the way that I see the world, with my worldview. I have what I would consider to be like a Christian biblical worldview. I realize now that that's very debated as to what it even means to be Christian or to have a biblical worldview, but that's how I would categorize myself. In this last election that we recently had for governor, I voted for an independent. And I registered as not affiliated to any party because I don't feel loyal to a party, really. Like I said, it's always probably going to be Republican because of the basic tenets they stand on if I have to vote. But like I said, this last time it was independent. So, someone said you don't believe in gay rights. And that's not true depending on how you define gay rights. I am a biblical Christian, like I said, in the sense that I believe that biblical marriage is between a man and a woman, and that God created a man and a woman to complete each other, essentially. Like I was kind of saying earlier, there's this complementarianism philosophy that I tend to believe in, that we were essentially made for each other. But if you're saying rights in the sense of like that they shouldn't be allowed to be treated as human beings that are loved and accepted in society, if you mean that I don't believe in gay rights, like I remember when gay marriage was first kind of being presented as like, okay, this is really going to happen within the last like 10 to 15 years. One thing that was talked about a lot was that partners were not allowed to see each other, supposedly, I don't know if this is true or not, but like in a hospital setting because they weren't married. Like, I'm not for that. I think that if people, I think people should be allowed to see whoever they want to see in the hospital, but I think that that's kind of cruel to deny someone who has been in a relationship with someone else in a serious capacity for however long, but if they consider them a serious relationship, to then say, oh no, you can't go in because you don't have this piece of paper from the government declaring that you're married. It's like, I think it's kind of weird that the government is involved in marriage anyways. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Like, Dan and I have joked before that like there's a part of our rebellious personality that's like, we didn't even need to get married. Like, the government should just stay out of our business. But the problem is they've inserted themselves into our business. They've made it a government thing that has to do with like taxes and property. And it's very bizarre versus just like a relationship pact we made between each other. So yeah, I don't really know specifically what you mean, obviously, because that's like 6 words. But no, I do not believe that gay people should be separated from their partners in the hospital. I don't believe that gay people should be ousted from society. But I do believe that God created man and woman for each other. So I don't know if that answers your question. So we're going to go from that one into, I'm going to do like 2 more, into this one. You are very understanding and not judgmental of others. You seem like a great friend. Thank you. I'm just laughing because people who are angry at my last assumption are going to be like, about this one. Here's what well, first off, thank you. Like I said, what I would say is that I'm actually like very judgmental in the sense of like, I decide what I think is right or wrong for myself. I look at things and research things and come to a conclusion that I think is correct in the world, that I think should play out in the world. This is how I think things should be, type of thing. But I'm not judgmental in the sense that like, I really recognize and respect that other people land in different places, and that's okay. I definitely have this like streak through me. I've said this before on my Patreon. I have like an aggressively libertarian streak through me. I don't necessarily love that because I don't necessarily think like libertarianism or anarchism, if that's the way to put it, is a way that you can run a society necessarily. But I feel it deep within my soul that it's like, oh yeah, I definitely have this like libertarian streak to me where there is just part of me that's like, hey, this is what I think. I think that it's X, Y, and Z, but you do you and I'll do me. So if you call that not judgmental, that is a genuine part of my personality. But in terms of forming an opinion, I form opinions, as you guys know, about all kinds of things. I make up my mind, I decide what I'm going to do, what I think, and yeah, I'm not like not forming decisions in life or opinions in life, if that makes sense, obviously. Someone said, I assume that you would free birth. And I love that assumption. Thank you very much. I think I would free birth in like an alternate reality in my imagination. Like I do really like the idea of free birthing. If you're wondering what that means, by the way, that basically just means birthing on your own, like with maybe your husband or by yourself, or just basically with no medical professionals. So no midwife, no doula. It just means having your baby. Or like a friend of mine posted on Instagram a few weeks ago. She said, Mary free birthed our Lord and Savior. So that Mary free birthed in a manger with Joseph, her baby, Jesus Christ. So that is something that really appeals to me. I don't know if I'll ever have the guts to do it or if it would ever be appropriate for me to do it. I would have to be it would have to feel right. I'd have to be following my heart. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm open to it. I think the idea of it is really cool. I loved doing my home birth with just me, my husband, and my midwife. At the end, another midwife showed up because basically, if you didn't see my birth video, we didn't call the midwife till like the very last minute. So she like barely showed up in time. And then the other midwife showed up after her because in their practice, if a mom is home birthing for the first time, you have to have 2 midwives present. But they were just like rushing to get there. So, but I loved that. I loved the low key nature of my home birth. And I could see myself going for even more low key. But also, who knows? You know, if you guys watch Paul and Morgan here on YouTube, Paul and Morgan had planned to do a home birth and things played out differently. And so there's always part of me with every single opinion that I hold, specifically we'll say with medical, that's like, you know what? We'll see. Like, we'll see what happens. You know, even though I get on these like rampages against the Western medical industrial complex, I simultaneously am very grateful for them. And I think that they've nailed a lot of things, you know, like antibiotics when necessary, like surgeries when necessary. And I'm really appreciative of a lot of good people that work within that industry and that field. But I also have a lot of other opinions that you guys kind of have already gotten snapshots into. And so because of all of that, those other opinions, I love the idea of free birthing, but we will see what God has for us. And on that note, I'm going to answer one more question. I thought I was going to be done, but that kind of leads into this next one. So, they said, I assume that you will be less open about a possible next pregnancy. And I've thought about this a lot. I think my basic answer is that that's not true. I think I'm still going to be really open because I think that even if I didn't tell people that I was pregnant and that I miscarried again, I would still tell people that I miscarried because I'm such an expressive person, and I don't love keeping big emotional things like that in. Like, some people have to, and they have to process internally. I'm the opposite. For a lot of things, I like to express and process them externally, and it also gives me a feeling of like purpose, like there's a reason for the pain. And that's, you know, story. By sharing stories and experiences, for me, I think pain can be kind of given like a purpose. I think I just said that and then reworded it. But no, I think I'm going to be open. We'll see. I always give myself permission to change my mind about everything, but I'm like, that's kind of where I'm at right now. We actually have not even started trying again. I did find, I mentioned this in a video recently, that after I miscarried, or after my due date, I started feeling like, okay, I'm ready now. But I actually ended up getting back my HTMA results, my hair tissue mineral analysis. And those results left me feeling like I wanted another month or two to specifically work on a couple of things that came back from that test, including liver weakness, basically like my liver not operating at an optimal place, really wanting to target my liver, including some things like sharing that I have overactive adrenals, or showing me that I have overactive adrenals and I have an overactive thyroid. And there's some specific things that you can do to care for those things. So I had decided when I got those back, I want to wait another month or two. So we'll see. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting very close, and I can tell that. I was actually about to share something else, but now I'm keeping a secret. I don't share everything, guys. So on that note, I am going to go now because I could talk for forever, bless my heart. And I really want to film my Patreon video. So I will, God willing, see you guys back here soon with another new video. And if you liked this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And I look forward to hearing your opinions in the comments. So, all right. Bye, guys.